last segment before we play some video games. If you want to participate in the games and you want to vote on what we're going to play, please head on over to Twitch. It is twitch.tv/judgmentalmonk, and you will participate in the whole show. We are 2 followers away over there from hitting my goal for the month, so please, please, please head on over there. You won't regret it. All right, next segment, we have a PvP analysis on the January 2022 new shadows. As you guys know, we are currently, right now, in a Team Go Rocket takeover event. We got a bunch of new shadow Pokemon, and let's get into the PvP article and see how good these guys are when it comes to a PvP analysis. First up, we have Shadow Meganium. It is a Grass-type Pokemon, of course. Most forgettable movie. Mostly forgettable movie, but hard to forget Pokemon. Meganium has sat and watched other grass get a shadow release while awaiting its turn, and now that turn has finally arrived. Meganium has been quite good in PvP for a long time and has stayed relevant in very large part thanks to the unique coverage of Earthquake. As it does for the recently invigorated Whaleren, Quake gives a grass like Meganium reach against things that plague other grasses, especially steels and fires, especially things like Registeel and Alolan Marowak in Great League, and Melmetal, Registeel, Magnezone, and Ferrothorn in Ultra League. As I discussed in my recent PvP review of Venusaur, Venusaur is arguably the best and most consistent Frenzy Plant user, but Meganium is very close, especially in Ultra League, where Meganium and Venusaur are neck and neck. Meganium has advantages not just against steels and fires, but also uses Quake to overcome Origin Giratina, Armored Mewtwo, and Gallade that Venusaur struggles with. Venusaur's standout wins are versus fighters and fairies primarily, owing to its poison subtyping and or Sludge Bomb. Anyway, all that to set the stage for the potential of Shadow Meganium. I've got good news and not so good news. The good is that Shadow Meganium looks like an overall upgrade to regular Meganium in Great League. New wins including Dewgong, Mastodon, Shadow Hypno, Scrafty, Obstagoon, Vigoroth, Wigglytuff, Coffergigas, but the slashed bulk means that Shadow Meganium now loses some of its former standout wins to include Alolan Marowak, Whaleren, Umbreon, and Mew. On the flip side, with shields down, it is Shadow Meganium that gets win over Alolan Marowak and Umbreon, as well as Sableye, Cresselia, Sylveon, and Pelipper, while non-Shadow instead lasts long enough to take out Hypno, Medicham, Coffergigas, and Drapion. Blah, blah, blah. Shadow Meganium does again have a greater number of wins. Do note, however, that even that is not absolute, as in 2 vs 2 shielding non-Meganium leaves Shadow Meganium behind, and that trend continues into Ultra League, where Shadow Meganium trails behind non-Shadow, uniquely overcoming Defense Deoxys and Bronzong, but losing to Origin Giratina, Armored Mewtwo, Ferrothorn, Registeel, Obstagoon, Shadow Machamp, and Sylveon in 1 vs 1 shielding. The story is better with shields down, where Shadow and non-Shadow are on pretty equal ground, as well as Shadow versus non-Shadow in 2 vs 2 shielding. But overall, the gap in the important 1 vs 1 shielding shows that Meganium really misses having its bulk and advantage in Ultra when run out there as a Shadow. So, what's the verdict? Shadow Meganium looks like mostly an upgrade in Pokemon in Great League, though not perfectly so. I think it's worth trying to get a good one under 1500 CP while it's available. However, in the Ultra League, it's a side grade at best, and it's probably more accurate to call it a slight downgrade overall. I'm not saying it's not worth building, but in my mind, it's a much lower priority, especially considering the exorbitant cost. Up to you if it's worth it or not, my friend. All right. Next up. Hold on. Oh, and before we move on entirely, yes, Shadow Bayleaf becomes a somewhat interesting Razor Leaf option. If Excel Candy isn't a concern, at least I ran it there without any charge moves, as that tends to give the most ideal performance for Razor Leafers, but it comes with Grass Knot and Ancient Power. For intriguing coverage, the potential boosts a la Togekiss, I don't know if I'd do it, but it's a legit tanky Leafer, and one could argue that it's a better Grottle now, at least. Alright, well, I wouldn't be running that. Alright, Shadow Chickarita itself is worth consideration. It looks slightly better than normal Chickarita in Little League, and you know Chickarita was all over the place last time we visited Little League. That's very, very true. All right. Up next, we have Shadow Typhlosion. Sorry, not sorry. My closest Lord of... sorry, not sorry. My closet Lord of the Rings fans coming out there. What? Anyway, while Typhlosion isn't our first Shadow Incinerate Pokemon in the game, that distinction belongs to Ho-Oh. It is a heck of a lot easier and potentially cheaper to build. I didn't mention it with Meganium, but keep in mind that with Johto Tour coming in late February, we can TM frustration away from any Shadow Cyndaquil or Chickarita or Totodile during this current Shadow event and then evolve them during the Johto Tour to get their exclusive Community Day moves. That's a huge, huge thing to note right there, without needing to dip into elite TMs. Anyway, Incinerate can be scary enough, but how about Shadow Incinerate? The raw power picks up some impressive names like Defense Deoxys, Dugong, Lapras, Noctowl, Mandibuzz, Umbreon, Galvantula, Greedent, and Talonflame. But there are some troubling signs as well, with wins against Obstagoon, Toxicroak, Drapion, Ice Beam, Azumarill, Galarian Stunfisk, and even Venusaur. Yes, Shadow Typhlosion is undoubtedly scary with those big, fat Incinerates, but Typhlosion is already on the flimsier side, and being a Shadow just exacerbates the problem. This shows up more glaringly when you take shields away. Shadow Typhlosion can outrace Wellerin and Hypno, but unlike non-Shadow, cannot live long enough to defeat Drapion, Frostlass, Jellicent, Lickitung, Mew, Sableye, Wishcash, or Galarian Stunfisk. That's a problem. So what's the verdict? I believe it's worth building a Shadow Typhlosion for Great League. Shadow boosted Incinerate is just lunacy, but Shadow Typhlosion is left with a worryingly frail form, and that leaves it exposed with shields down and or in Ultra League. TM as many good ones as you can, but I wouldn't actually build beyond Great League for now. All right, next up we have Shadow Electrode. Let's go ahead and just go to the verdict section of this one because I can already tell you what I think is going to happen. The verdict. I think we'll just call Shadow Electrode an intriguing side grade in Great League. Utilizing its buffed attack, it's actually beat things you'd hope to eliminate with foul play, though not without giving up an equal number of new losses. Worth trying to get one good for the Great League use. All right, next we have Shadow Hippowdon, which is a ground type. Hippowdon is very limited viability in the Great and Ultra Leagues, but Shadow is generally a downgrade anyway. If you're going to build a Shadow Hippowdon at all, Master League Classic is its best niche. Don't bother with XLs. Both regular and Shadow Hippowdon fall off in perfect performance above level 40. Interesting. All right, next up we have Shadow Feraligatr. Obviously, that is a water type Pokemon. I was hopeful I want to see Feraligatr, hero of Ultra League, in the early seasons recapture some of its former spicy glory as a Shadow, but sadly it has not. As with Typhlosion, Feraligatr is already on the glassy side, and the additional loss of bulk as a Shadow is just too much. There was a time when Ice Fang Feraligatr was actually feared in Ultra, but Shadow goes in the wrong direction. Such is the case with the slightly more viable Waterfall Feraligatr, where Shadow is again a downgrade, and while Shadow is a side grade as compared to regular Feraligatr in Great League. Let's be honest, nobody's using Feraligatr in Great League. Sure looks for decent in Ultra League candidate, but this is one I highly doubt you'll miss if you can't find one. Such a shame. I love Feraligatr. Cool design and cool factor. All right, next up we have Shadow Exploud, which is a normal type Pokemon. And we're going to make this one quick. Exploud, Shadow or not, has no current place in PvP. All right, we'll move on. Next, we have Bagon's whole family, Bagon, Shieldon, Salamence. We're going to go ahead and find... Is there a verdict there? All right, we're just going to read this whole thing. Shadow Bagon is not technically new, but it was available only for a short time in one appearing in the past, appearing only with Arlo for less than 2 months and ending about a year ago. Very good chance you never had a shot at a good one back then, but I know I didn't. That said, this is more of a PvE concern. Shieldon has looked borderline interesting in Great League in certain limited metas, but Shadow is a step backwards anyway. And Salamence, well, no. And even though better as a Shadow, still no. You can do much better with your dragon in Master League, but Shadow Salamence is likely to make the raiding crowd happy at least. Let's go. All right, no returning back. So usually I finish off Shadow releases like this with a review of what from a new crop would to potentially be purified and run with return as a mini hyper beam. It's actually worked out well with several shadows of the past, but not this batch. Meganium still wants Earthquake, Typhlosion still wants Solar Beam. Feraligatr and Hippowdon need their existing moves. It's entirely possible that Exploud with Stab Hyper Beam could be interesting down the line, but again, only if it gets a decent fast move, and probably even then, honestly, not. Alright. So that's a pretty good rundown on all the new Shadow Pokemon. It looks like we're going to have some decent options in the Great League. Always Sylph Arena Cups are special on their own, so getting yourself some good ones there is always worth it. What do you guys think? Is there any Shadow Pokemon that is out right now that you guys are particularly hunting for?